Hi all, wishing you a very good morning. So today we are going to deal with the last portion of our third module, which is based on Victorian criticism and Matthew Arnold. So you all have learned and studied about the various phases in English literature. As I told you earlier, reading and learning more about history of English literature will always help you to understand the various critics and the phases of criticism during this period. So as of now, we can see that soon after the neoclassical criticism, we have dealt with romantic criticism, and now we are going to deal with the Victorian criticism. The Victorian criticism was based on the Victorian era in which Queen Victoria was reigning. Okay, the regime of Queen Victoria. Okay, it was a time in which you can see there was a hell lot of information that was quite different from the romantic criticism. The romantics always dealt with nature as well as the god in every living things. They always dealt with the simple things, the simple language which has to be taken care of while writing anything in romantic literature. So you can see that Matthew Arnold was a person who was born during this period. He was born during the time of the romantic criticism or during the time of the romantics, and he hated the way in which the romantics dealt with the literature. As for him, you can see that there was always a lot of situations in which he was there. He was born in a very educated family. His father was a schoolmaster, so you can see that he always had a certain kind of affinity and contact with different literatures of that period. And of course, he read voraciously, he read a lot about the different masters of English literature like Spenser, Chaucer, Shakespeare, etc. Now, his literature, he mainly concentrated on the reality of the things. So, what is meant by reality? All of these can be studied here. The Victorian criticism and Matthew Arnold is a PowerPoint that I am putting forward in order to understand more about Victorian criticism, Victorian age, Victorian literature, and how Matthew Arnold paved way for the new kind of criticism. The chief characteristics of the age. The period from 1837 to 1901 was Queen Victoria's reign period. It was a period in which the Industrial Revolution had taken place and there was a lot of crowded cities around. People always loved to move to cities and they always hated the rural areas. Now, the Victorian Compromise was there. What is the Victorian Compromise? The Victorian Compromise was the dilemma that was present or the confusion that was there between science and religion. Darwin's publication of Origin of the Species sprouted this kind of scientific inquiry. And this scientific inquiry always questioned what? Questioned the religious authorities. They always asked if Adam and Eve was there. They always asked if that was God who made man. So, this Victorian compromise, the kind of compromise between religion and science, was present. Then you can see the series of publication of scientific books which was initiated by Darwin and his Origin of Species. Then there was a prominent use of children in labors. They were always used as child laborers. This is more prominent in certain novels such as Charles Dickens' David Copperfield and also Tale of Two Cities, etc., in which this kind of activism or this kind of activity was seen or more prevalent. Now we are going to deal with Victorian literature. The emphasis given to social issues and the plight of the people. The Victorian literature always gave emphasis to the social issues and the plight of the people. It was a crucial precursor to the period of modernism that was to follow. It was a period of junction. It was a period of twist. It was a period in which the certain romantic ideals had come into a sudden halt, and there was always a kind of reality that was sprouting. The kind of imagination that was found in Wordsworth and Coleridge, it began to stop, and there was always condemn, or there was always experimentation with stark realities in modernism. So between romanticism and modernism, you can see Victorian criticism or Victorian literature was a sudden junction or sudden twist in ideas. So it was more of a precursor to modernism which was to follow. Then there was more realistic portrayal of events. That events that were portrayed here, it was more realistic. Then where there was more pictorial and less subjective in its approach. So the pictorial representation, that means the realistic expressions were there, and it was less subjective. That means the objective kind of writing, the kind of writing which was impersonal. The personal way of writing was not there. Everything was impersonal. It was characterized by doubts and psychological conflicts. Doubts and psychological conflicts was there in basis of this. Okay. Some other factors that helped in the understanding of reality in the Victorian times were there were certain kind of factors that dealt with the understanding of reality during the Victorian period. And what was that? It was the opening up of new universities. Universities were opened up, free education was given, and there was always the challenging of the religious aspect with the facts understood by science. The facts of science always were contradictory to what? To religion, and always this conflict always triggered a kind of challenging or questioning of the religious ideals. The uncivilized character of the nation and the barbarism of the middle class after the accumulation of wealth. So there was a kind of uncivilized character within the nation. The nation was becoming barbaric during that time, because the middle class people, soon after the industrial revolution, they began to set up factories, they began to earn money, and they began to എന്താ പറയുന്നത് വെട്ടിപ്പിടിക്കാൻ തുടങ്ങി ഓരോ സാധനങ്ങൾ. Okay, so these people, they began to accumulate wealth soon after the industrial revolution. Now you can see we are going straight forward to Matthew Arnold. The major works of Arnold are Essays in Criticism, first series which was published in 1865, and the second series which was published in 1888. The next collection of essay was Culture and Anarchy, which was there written in the period 1869. Now we are going to Arnold's views on literature, on culture as such. Culture and Anarchy, which was written in 1869, is a major work of criticism by Matthew Arnold. In it, Arnold contrasts culture, which he defines as a study of perfection. He says that the whole nation is uncultured, the whole nation is becoming imperfect, and therefore, in order to get some perfection, there is the need for culture. So, the culture is defined as the study of perfection. And here he brings forward a contrast between culture and anarchy. Anarchy means the current situation that was prevalent during that period. There is a current situation of chaos, confusion that was prevalent during the England period. Now, Arnold classified the English society into barbarians with their lofty spirit, serenity, and distinguished manners, and their inaccessibility of ideas. So, he always labeled the nation, the people living in that particular nation, as barbaric, as uncivilized, etc. And that is why I have put a PowerPoint slide in which a cat is there. The cat is condemned. The black cat is always condemned by everybody. Why? Because it is taken as something evil. And here the black cat is standing like he is standing to attack, isn't it? Yes. So the barbaric spirit that was inculcated, there was in the nation, the spirit of the nation was barbaric, and this barbaric situation made Arnold to write his famous work Culture and Anarchy in the period 1869. As a true democrat, Matthew Arnold felt it his duty to let the society know what the function of a true artist was. So he felt that he was a pious person, he was a patriotic person who was always standing for the liberation as well as for the improvement of the nation. So he was a democrat. He was a democrat who stood for the upliftment of the society, and therefore he felt that it was his duty to let the society know what the function of a true artist was. He felt that he must create a climate for a true artist to function properly. In order for a true artist to function properly, there must be a certain kind of climate. He put forward his views on culture as an important element for the molding up of human nature. So, culture is something that is there for molding up of a human nature. It is an essential element of a human nature. Culture is described in his first essay, Sweetness and Light, in his book Culture and Anarchy, as having its origin in the love of perfection. So, culture is defined by Arnold as a love for perfection. Why this love of perfection is there? Because he feels that there is always confusion all around. So, culture is described in Culture and Anarchy. The definition of culture is defined in his book Culture and Anarchy. In that particular book, the first essay that he has written, Sweetness and Light, ആ സ്വീറ്റ്നെസ് ആൻഡ് ലൈറ്റ് എന്ന് പറയുന്ന എസ്സേയിൽ നിന്നാണ് ഈ കൾച്ചർ ആൻഡ് അനാർക്കിയുടെ ഒരു ഡിസ്ക്രിപ്ഷൻ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഒരു ഡെഫിനിഷൻ വരുന്നത്. സോ ഹിയർ വെൻ യു സീ the word sweetness and light, you can see that sweetness and light is coming from a book that was written by Jonathan Swift, The Battle of the Books. The Battle of the Books എന്ന് പറയുന്ന ബുക്കിൻ്റെ അകത്തു നിന്നാണ് ഈ സ്വീറ്റ്നെസ് ആൻഡ് ലൈറ്റ് എന്ന് പറയുന്ന ഒരു ഫ്രേസ് തന്നെ എടുത്ത് ടൈറ്റിലാക്കിയിരിക്കുന്നത്. To Arnold, culture is a study in perfection, in making things better than they are, moved by the moral and social passion for good. So what happened? Culture, Arnold's culture എന്താണ്? Culture is a study of perfection, in making things better. ഒരുപാട് ക്യാവോസ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള കിടക്കുന്ന കാര്യങ്ങൾ, അലങ്കോലപ്പെട്ട് കിടക്കുന്ന കാര്യങ്ങളെല്ലാം ഒരു സെറ്റാക്കി വെക്കുക, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഒരു രൂപത്തിൽ പരുവപ്പെടുത്തി എടുക്കുക. Moved by the moral and social passion for doing good. So everything that is inculcated within culture is something that is there for the passion for bringing up good in something. So culture aims at the perfection which is harmonious. There is always a harmonious perfection. Perfection in which both the beauty and intelligence are present. Beauty ഉണ്ട്, intelligence ഉണ്ട്. A perfection which unites the two noblest of things. Two noble ആയിട്ടുള്ള things. What is it? Sweetness and light. Sweetnessum ലൈറ്റും, അതായത് മധുരവുമാണ്, അതിൻ്റെ കൂടെ അത് ലൈറ്റും കൂടെയാണ്, ലൈറ്റും കൂടി ഉണ്ട്. സോ വാട്ട് ഈസ് ഹിയർ? ഇറ്റ് ഈസ് ലൈക്ക് എ ബീ, ഒരു ഹണി ബീ പോലെയാണ്. ഹണി ബീയുടെ എക്സ്ട്രാക്ട്. വാട്ട് ഈസ് ഹണി ബീസ് എക്സ്ട്രാക്ട്? ഹണി ബീസ് എക്സ്ട്രാക്ട് ഇസ് ഹണി, ഓഫ് കോഴ്സ്. ഈ ഹണി, അതുകൂടാതെ വാക്സ്, അതിൻ്റെ കൂട്ടിൽ നിന്ന് വാക്സ് നമുക്ക് കിട്ടും. And that wax is used to make candle, isn't it? So he says that culture is just like a honeybee. It gives sweetness, it gives light. Okay, so it is the perfection, it is the concomitance, or it is the unity of two noble things, which is sweetness and light. The man of culture, Arnold says, ever aims at sweetness and light, while the man who goes against this is a Philistine. So here he puts forward the word Philistine. Philistine എന്ന് വെച്ചാൽ it is a German word which stands for barbarism. So here he says that a person who aims at sweetness and light is a person who is having some kind of a culture, a man of culture, whereas a man who goes against it is a barbaric person. The German word Philistine is borrowed here. Now, according to Arnold, culture is to know the best that has been said and thought in the world. Culture for Arnold is the best thing that has been said and thought in the world. Now, moving to Arnold's views on poetry. You can see that in your module you are having Arnold's views on culture that we have already completed now, and we are going to Arnold's study of poetry, the views on poetry. Arnold, in his work, The Study of Poetry, written in 1888, which is a classical piece of essay, he opens the essay thus: the future of poetry is immense, because in poetry, where it is worthy of its high destinies, our race, as time goes on, will find an ever surer and surer stay. So he says that the future of poetry is immense, because poetry, where it is worthy of high destinies in worthy ആണ് poetry, and therefore our human race, as time goes on, will find an ever surer and surer stay. Something that holds the humankind back is the poetry. Poetry brings about morality. Poetry brings about some kind of an aesthetic appeal also. So whatever it is, Arnold says that poetry is something that humankind will always find to be good. As dogmas of religion was shaken, poetry alone can give self-assurance and nourishment to mankind. So he says that as dogmas, as the basis, as the basic foundations of religion has shaken, poetry alone can give self-assurance and nourishment to mankind. Self-assurance-ഉം nourishment-ഉം മാൻകൈൻഡിന് കൊടുക്കാൻ പറ്റുന്ന ഒരേ ഒരു കാര്യം എന്താണ്? പോയട്രിയാണ്. It is therefore necessary to keep the best of poetry as our models. Therefore, during this time, the time period from which we are learning English literature, it was a period from which Beowulf was written. So obviously Beowulfന് ഒരു എഴുതിയ ഒരു writer ഇല്ല. It is an anonymous piece. Therefore, we are always starting from Gorboduc. We are always starting from Gammergeston's Needle. We are always starting from Nicholas Udall. So അവിടെ നിന്ന് നമ്മൾ ഒരു ഫേമസ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള മാസ്റ്റർ പീസുകൾ എടുത്തു കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ യു ആർ ഹാവിങ് ചോസറിന് എന്താണുള്ളത്? യു ഹാവിങ് ചോസേഴ്സ് കാൻറ്റർബറി ടേൽസ്. ലേറ്റർ യു ഹാവിങ് പിൽഗ്രിംസ് പ്രോഗ്രസ് ബൈ ജോൺ ബനിയൻ. യു ആർ ഹാവിങ് സ്പെൻസറിൻ്റെ പ്രോതലാമിയൻ എപ്പിതലാമിയൻ ഉണ്ട്. ദെൻ യു ആർ ഹാവിങ് മിൽട്ടൺ. യു ആർ ഹാവിങ് ഷേക്സ്പിയർ, isn't it? You're having Dryden, Pope, etc. So there are certain masters in every literature. The persons who are writing literature needn't be masters. All people who are writing literature needn't be masters. Only some people will be masters. And therefore, in order to keep this poetry as something that is there for the mankind, you have to always keep the masters. You have to always keep the masters as the best models for poetry. So here you can see that neoclassical criticismത്തിനകത്ത് ക്ലാസിക്കൽ പീസിനെ എപ്പോഴും ഒരു മോഡലായിട്ട് എടുക്കാൻ പറയുന്നുണ്ട് ആര് ഡ്രൈഡനും പോപ്പും. In the same way, Arnold, he was a Victorian, but he was also acting like a classicist. He was also turning to the classicist. He was also turning to the old models, to keep old models as something that is there to verify the kind of poetry that was written during the period. Arnold defines poetry as a criticism of life under the conditions fixed for that criticism by the laws of poetic truth and poetic beauty. So he says that poetry is a criticism of life. Under what? Under the conditions fixed for that criticism by the laws of poetic truth and poetic beauty. So what are the two constituent elements that would constitute a poetry? Poetry is a criticism of life under the conditions fixed for that criticism, which was under the laws of poetic truth and poetic beauty. Poetic truth and poetic beauty ആണ് ഇതിൻ്റെ ബേസിക് ആയിട്ട് വരുന്ന രണ്ട് constituent elements. So this is important. You should have to learn it by heart. Now by this he says only the best poetry is capable of performing this task. ഏറ്റവും ബെസ്റ്റ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള പോയട്രിക്ക് മാത്രമേ ഒരു ലൈഫ് ക്രിറ്റിസിസം ആകാൻ പറ്റുള്ളൂ. Only that poetry which is the criticism of life can be our support and stay when other help fail us. ബാക്കിയുള്ള എല്ലായിടത്തുനിന്നും നമുക്കൊരു നെഗറ്റീവ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു കമൻസ് കിട്ടുമ്പോൾ the poetry is there, it is standing there to help us, and therefore the poetry which is a criticism of life is always capable to support and stay. Now the next one, so it is important that readers should learn to choose the best. The readers should always be there to choose the best. Only the best kind of poetry will always stand. It will always stand like a classical piece. Therefore, the reader should be able to find the difference between a good poetry and a bad poetry. Now, in choosing the best poetry, the readers are warned against two kinds of fallacious judgments. There are two kinds of different kinds of judgments. So these two kinds of judgments should be taken into consideration. They should not be, that is, it is a fallacy, it is a mistake to take both of these into consideration. What are the different fallacies or the flaws or the mistakes that we condemned or that we always make use of while we are judging literature? The first one is historic estimate. We are always taking into consideration history of that particular work. It is not good. Next one, personal estimate. The personal element, the judgmental, the subjective element that comes into play there is always taken into consideration. But these two elements are not right. You should not take these two elements for judging a kind of literature. Now here you can see, according to Arnold, the best poetry is born of sincerity of feelings and emotions. The best poetry is born of sincerity of feelings and emotions. It is characterized by high seriousness, truth of representation, and excellence of diction. So the best poetry is always having a high seriousness. The subject topic is of high seriousness. Then there is truth in the representation and excellence of diction, the perfect language in which it is written. By high seriousness, the critic means the grand style which is in poetry where a serious subject is treated in a simple and intense manner. So by high seriousness, what is it? It means that a subject which is very serious is treated in a simple and very intense manner, and that is meant by high seriousness. So high seriousness ഉണ്ട്, truth of representation ഉണ്ട്, excellence of diction ഉണ്ട്. So best poetry is equal to the high seriousness, truth of representation and excellence of diction. Now here you can see the opinions that Arnold had of different writers. He says Chaucer will be read more and more with the passing of time, but he is not a classic. His poetry lacks the accent of a real classic. This is so because he has the truth of substance but not high seriousness. Arnold says that Chaucer will of course be read by many generation of people, but these elements of this poetry of Chaucer is lacking of high seriousness. He has the truth of substance, but the topic is not highly serious. Now next one, Shakespeare and Milton are our poetic classics, but Dryden and Pope are not poetical classics. He says that Shakespeare and Milton are of course taken to be poetical classics, but Dryden and Pope are not poetical classics. They shouldn't be taken as poetical classics. The most singular and unique poet of the age of Pope and Dryden is Gray. Who is Gray? Thomas Gray. Thomas Gray wrote Elegy Written in a Country Churchyard. So, according to Arnold, Thomas Gray is a person who is far more greater than Pope and Dryden. The poetry of Burns, Robert Burns, the poetry of Burns has truth of matter and manner. The Burns-ന്റെ poetry-യുടെ അത് മാറ്ററും മാനറും സത്യങ്ങളാണ്. പക്ഷേ not the accent of the poetic virtue of the highest masters, but he lacks the virtue, the kind of writing of the highest masters. Here he comes forward to put a touchstone method. Touchstone method എന്ന് വെച്ചാൽ നമ്മളിപ്പോൾ ഒരു കുറച്ച് സ്വർണം നമ്മൾ കടയിൽ കൊടുക്കാൻ വേണ്ടി പോകുന്നു, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ കുറച്ച് സ്വർണം നമ്മൾ ബാങ്കിൽ വായ്പ എടുക്കാൻ വേണ്ടി ലോൺ വെക്കാൻ വേണ്ടി നമ്മൾ പോകുന്നു. അപ്പോൾ പോകുമ്പോൾ ഇത് ഒറിജിനൽ ആണോ ഡ്യൂപ്ലിക്കേറ്റ് ആണോ നോക്കാൻ വേണ്ടി അവർ എന്ത് ചെയ്യും? ഒരു കല്ല് എടുത്തിട്ട് ഉരച്ച് നോക്കും. അപ്പോൾ ആ കല്ല് അവിടെ ഒരു എന്താണ് ഒരു എലമെൻ്റായി മാറിയിരിക്കുകയാണ്. ഒരു എന്താ പറയുക, ഒരു സത്യമാണത്. കല്ലിൽ കൂടെയാണ് സത്യങ്ങൾ മനസ്സിലാക്കുന്നത്. സോ ഹിയർ അർണൾഡും അതേപോലെ ഒരു സത്യം മനസ്സിലാക്കുന്ന ഒരു സ്റ്റോൺ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഒരു ടച്ച് സ്റ്റോൺ മെത്തേഡ് എന്ന് പറയുന്ന ഒരു മെത്തേഡ് അർണൾഡ് ഇവിടെ പുട്ട് ഫോർവേഡ് ചെയ്യുകയാണ്. സോ അർണൾഡ് നേരത്തെ ഞാൻ പറഞ്ഞിരുന്നു കുറച്ച് റൈറ്റേഴ്സിനെ കണ്ടം ചെയ്തു. ഹി സേസ് ദാറ്റ് ഗ്രേ ഈസ് ഫാർ മോർ സുപ്പീരിയർ ദാൻ പോപ്പ് ആൻഡ് ഡ്രൈഡൻ. ഹി സേസ് ദാറ്റ് ബേൺസ് ഈസ് വെരി ഗുഡ്. ഹി സേസ് ദാറ്റ് ഷേക്സ്പിയർ ആൻഡ് മിൽട്ടൺ ആർ വെരി ഗുഡ്. അങ്ങനെയൊക്കെ പറയുന്നുണ്ടെന്നൊക്കെ ഞാൻ പറഞ്ഞു. സോ ഹി സേസ് ദാറ്റ് യു ഹാവ് ടു ഓൾവേസ് ടേക്ക് ഇൻ ടു കൺസിഡറേഷൻ certain poetical masters as well as pieces of literature in order to understand the worth of another literature. ഒരു കമ്പാരിസൺ ആണ് ഇവിടെ നടക്കുന്നത്. ഒരു ലിറ്ററേച്ചർ പീസിൻ്റെ കമ്പാരിസൺ നടക്കുകയാണ് വേറൊരു പീസുമായിട്ട്. എ ഗേൾ ഹൂ ഈസ് നമ്മൾ കേട്ടിട്ടുണ്ട് ലൈക്ക് ഐശ്വര്യ റായ് ഇസ് എ മോസ്റ്റ് ബ്യൂട്ടിഫുൾ വുമൻ ഇൻ ദ വേൾഡ്. ഓക്കെ, അപ്പോൾ ഐശ്വര്യ റായെ പോലെ വേറൊരു ലേഡി വന്നിട്ടുണ്ട് ഇടുക്കിയിൽ എന്നൊക്കെ പറഞ്ഞ് നമ്മൾ കേട്ടു. ആൻഡ് അതിൻ്റെ ഒരു ആൽബം ഒക്കെ ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു ആ കുട്ടിയുടെ. ബട്ട് ലേറ്റർ യു ക്യാൻ സീ ദാറ്റ് ഷീ വാസ് കമ്പയർഡ്. Her eyes were compared to original Aishwarya Rai. Her nose were compared to original Aishwarya Rai. Her lips were compared. Her teeth were compared. Her smile were compared. Her body was compared. Her hair was compared. Everything was compared. So here, what has happened is that Aishwarya Rai ഒരു touchstone ആയി മാറിയിരിക്കുകയാണ് for the other girl to be analyzed. In the same way, Arnold put forward a touchstone method in which the practical great masters of the classics and the lines are being taken, and these lines are getting compared with the writings of the present age. in order to understand whether these writings are superior or like that of the masters. അപ്പോൾ the lines of intense poetic quality must be treasured by us, lodged in our minds as guiding touchstones for great poetry. Short passages and single lines from Homer, Dante, Shakespeare, Milton and others may be memorized and applied as touchstones to test the worth of the poems we want to determine the poetic quality of a work. എല്ലാവർക്കും മനസ്സിലായെന്നാണ് വിചാരിക്കുന്നത്. So here he says that the worth of a work is being declared only through comparing it with the lines and the passages of the great classical masters. Okay. Matthew Arnold is one of the foremost critics of 19th century, who is often regarded as the father of modern English criticism. Arnold's work as a literary critic started with Preface to the Poems in 1853. That was his first work. After giving an elaborate account of the function and nature of poetry and criticism, Arnold gives a critical account of many of the classics in English literature. He traverses, he moves through great names like that of Chaucer, Gray, Dryden and Burns. As I've told you earlier, he always compares. About Chaucer, Arnold says that though he is one of the greatest classics of English poetry, he lacks high seriousness. That is found in the likes of Shakespeare and Milton. Shakespeare and Milton high seriousness ഉണ്ട്, but that high seriousness is getting lacked in the works of Chaucer. On Dryden, Arnold says that he is one of the finest prose writers of English language and proper prose began from him. Dryden പറ്റി എന്താ പറയുന്നത്? He is finest. He is one of the finest prose writers of English language and the best prose started with him. Arnold compliments Gray and Burns for their great poetry, but again he rejects them as classics as like Chaucer. Their poetry lacks high seriousness that must be present in great poetry. Arnold says that Gray is far superior than whom? Than Pope and Dryden, but he says that Gray lacks high seriousness. In the same way, he says that Burns is also having some kind of a good element within him, but there also he says that Burns is lacking high seriousness just like Chaucer. Now, we are going to the next section. What Arnold says about criticism. Arnold ascribes to criticism a scope and importance hitherto undreamt of. Nobody realized that criticism was such a very great element. The function of criticism, in his sense, he says that the function of criticism is a disinterested endeavor to learn and propagate the best that is known and thought in the world, and thus to establish a current of fresh and true ideas. It is a disinterested, താല്പര്യമില്ലാത്ത അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഒബ്ജക്റ്റീവായിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു എൻഡെവർ എന്ന് വെച്ചെന്നാൽ ഒരു കൈൻഡ് ഓഫ് ജേർണി ടു ലേൺ ആൻഡ് പ്രൊപ്പഗേറ്റ്, ടു അണ്ടർസ്റ്റാൻഡ് ആൻഡ് ഓൾസോ ടു make others understand the best that is known and thought in the world, and thus to establish a current of fresh and true ideas, and thereby the critic always makes and establishes a current a series of fresh and true ideas. It is in fact a spirit that he is trying to foster, the spirit of an awakened and informed intelligence, playing upon not literature merely, but theology, history, art, science, sociology, politics, and every sphere, seeking to see this object as in reality it is. So he always tries to understand the object in its reality. He always tries to understand the reality between the different objects, and he always tries to understand the real judgment behind all these. By what? By a disinterested endeavor to learn and propagate, that is learn and propagate the best that is known and thought in the world, and to establish a current of fresh and true ideas. So please Kutyala, please, you have to understand, you have to learn, you have to by heart all the quotes given here. And concluding, you can see, as a critic, Arnold is essentially a moralist and has very definite ideas about what poetry should and should not be. So he is having definite ideas of what a poetry should and should not be. So his criticism can be highly called as moralistic criticism. He says that a critical piece is having a moralistic aspect, and that is why the criticism that he is having here, he is making here, is called as a moralistic criticism. And therefore, for him, the literature was a criticism of life. So during the through the moral lens, when we can see that literature was a criticism of life. And with this we end the class. So thank you for bearing with me. I hope that all of you understood, and thanks a lot. So with this we come to an end of our class of third module. So after the Onam vacation we can start our fourth module. I hope that all of you will be studying this during your Onam holidays. Always keep on revising and refreshing all these, because always there is a kind of confusion. So always keep that in mind, and thank you.